Assalamu alaikum, girls. Today the topic of my presentation is obviously the digestion, which we have started, and we have started from here that every cell requires nutrients. They require small amino acids, small sugars, and proteins for their digestion. But mostly, the amino acid, fatty acids, and sugars do not exist in smaller state. They exist in polymer form, which cannot cross the membrane. So we need the digestion process in which large molecules are broken down into smaller ones, and then they become diffusible. And they're completely broken down into smaller ones, then they are diffused to the bloodstream at small intestine level. And this is what digestion is. After digestion, these molecules basically enter into bloodstream, and the indigestible food is eliminated out. And I told you about phases of nutrition like ingestion, the chemical digestion process, absorption of nutrients is taking place at small intestine level into blood and lymphatic system, and then assimilation, the conversion of these small body parts, small nutrients into your body by incorporating into complex structures, and then elimination of undigested food from our body is called as defecation. Then I'm going to start about human alimentary canal and all about digestion. Now the question is, what is alimentary canal? I might have told it to you before, but the digestive system of humans consists of a long tube. And that long tube starts from mouth, which is oral cavity, and then esophagus. It goes to stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and anus. This whole pathway of this tube is called as alimentary canal. And as I mentioned, the different parts of alimentary canal are oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, then it leads to small intestine, then it leads to large intestine, and rectum and anus. But it also has additional glands associated with it, and those additional glands are 3 pair of salivary glands, a pancreas, and a liver. They are also, part of alimentary canal. But अगर आप canal के form में सोचो तो it is like a long tube. तो आप imagine करें माउथ से स्टार्ट हो रही है ट्यूब, इसोफेगस है, स्टमक में थोड़ी swallow हो जाती है, स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन में फिर shrink होती है, large intestine is a bit bigger in size, rectum is a bit bigger, more big, and then anus में थोड़ी shrink होती है, and anus is just an outlet to expel the feces out of our body. But there are additional glands along with this canal, the 3 pairs of salivary glands, a pancreas, and a liver. They are also associated with digestive system. Always remember that. Now the 3 pair of salivary glands are located in one pair is located above the hard palate pair, okay? The other pair is located below tongue, and the third palate is each towards the edge of a jaw or towards the air. यानी आपके face में towards air, there is the third pair of salivary gland, one towards one ear and the other towards other ear. या यूं कह लें on the side of jaws. One of them is below tongue, other pair is above palate, and the third pair is on the side of jaw. Okay, so what is oral cavity? Oral cavity is the area of our mouth which is concerned with selection, grinding, and पार्शियल डाइजेशन ऑफ फूड। तो आप देखें आपके पूरे टॉपिक में ओरल कैविटी, फेरिंग्स एंड स्टमक एंड स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन एक्सेट्रा जो आप पढ़ेंगे, तो उसके साथ डैश लगा के उसका फंक्शन डिस्कस हुआ है। ऑलमोस्ट हेडिंग्स or subheadings are being discussed in your book. Like oral cavity is actually the heading, but it has the function is going to be selection, grinding, and partial digestion in oral cavity. While जब आप pharynx पढ़ रहे होंगे, pharynx की heading के साथ swallowing and peristalsis लिखा हुआ है। तो pharynx में और esophagus में swallowing का फंक्शन है और peristalsis का फंक्शन फॉलो किया जाएगा, जबकि स्टमक में डैश के साथ the heading is digestion, churning and melting. So this is what the function of stomach is कि digestion भी होती है, churning और melting भी होती है। इसी तरह small intestine के साथ लिखा हुआ है complete digestion and absorption. So this is what the function of small intestine is, complete digestion of food and absorption of food. And large intestine का क्या function है? Along with that bracket dash, it's written as absorption of water and defecation. This is what the main function of large intestine is, absorption of water and defecation. Coming back to our topic, which is oral cavity, I must show you the parts of oral cavity. Let me just keep the slide here. I made the diagram and I told you over there how oral cavity consists of tongue. It starts from mouth, but it has tongue, it has a hard palate, it has a soft palate. As the name shows, soft palate can change its position, while hard palate cannot change its position. And look at the nasopharyngeal pathway. This is nasal cavity, and then this one is opening into oral cavity, pharynx basically. This area is pharynx, and this one is, look at the green color, is showing nasopharynx, while the blue color is showing oropharynx, or basically it's pharynx. Oropharynx इसलिए कह रहे हैं कि oral cavity से भी connected है, यहाँ से pharynx start हो रहा है, and the purple area is laryngopharynx. But this is all about tongue and hard palate, and soft palate is the area of oral cavity. And I also have told you about the esophagus and voice box and trachea and epiglottis. I will talk about this later on again. Right now I told you about oral cavity, that oral cavity is a space behind mouth. I repeat, it's a space behind our mouth, and it plays a very important function in the whole process of digestion. Oral cavity is the site basically where we select food, where we chew or masticate our food, lubricate it with saliva and different chemicals, and then we also have chemical digestion, partial chemical digestion in oral cavity, and at the end of the day a bolus is formed, which we also call as morsel. So the first and foremost function of oral cavity is food selection. How we select food, the initial criteria of selecting a food is by the taste and how it feels. If it tastes bad, if it tastes rotten, we immediately spit the morsel out. We immediately reject it. Or if something hard feels into it, if something hard stone or hard bone is felt in the morsel, we also throw it or try to keep the stone out, or try to remove the, actually the whole morsel is out basically. So the foremost criteria of selecting food is taste and how it is felt, and sense of smell and vision is also involved in selecting the food. If the smell is spoiled or rotten, आपको सामने clearly smell आ रही है rotten food की, तो आप on the basis of sense of smell you will reject food. You'll say this is not the right food for me. I'm not going to eat this rotten food. If the sense of smell is good, if the smell of food is good, you will be starving to eat that food. You will immediately go for eating the food, and the food should also look appealing by the, I mean, अगर सलाद अच्छा बना हो, food अच्छी present हुई भी हो, तो हमारी भूख जो है दुबाला हो जाती है. So our oral cavity selects our food, especially on the basis of taste and how it feels. Then the other function of our oral cavity is chew the food and masticate it, grinding of food. That is one of the very helpful and useful way to small to break down the food, because you know when the food is big in size, one morsel is quite big in size, so our enzymes cannot act on the large pieces of food. It can only act on small chewed pieces of food, and it is also useful for the passage of food. I mean, big morsel cannot pass easily from esophagus. You know, esophagus has no space. When I have made the diagram of esophagus, I draw it, and when I show it over here, I told you, I think so, I told you that esophagus has potential space. It doesn't have space, it has potential space. देखिए जरा कितनी थिन है, बिल्कुल जुड़ी हुई है, इसमें स्पेस नहीं होती. बट नवाला जब गुजरता है तो ये स्वेलो हो जाती है यहाँ से इस तरफ, क्योंकि it has the potential to swallow, it has the potential to be swollen as well. जहाँ जहाँ से नवाला गुजरता जाता है वहाँ वहाँ से ये swollen होती जाती है. It lets the food pass through it, but big morsels cannot pass through esophagus. So we need to chew the food. Chewing the food is a mechanical process. Our teeth are involved in grinding of food and making it into small pieces. It's part of mechanical digestion. Okay. Then comes the topic of function of lubrication. Chewing process stimulates the three pairs of salivary glands to release a juice called saliva. When we are chewing, because during that process our salivary glands are stimulated, and the juice, which is called as saliva, is being added into our food, which is actually lubricating the food. Lubricating means, lubrication का मतलब होता है कोट करना किसी चीज़ को with oil or with something sticky to reduce the friction. जैसे हम दरवाजे के जो hinges हैं जंग आलूद हो जाए तो हम ऑयल लगाते हैं ना. अगर हमारे दरवाजे की जो हिंज है, दरवाजे का जो जोड़ है, आवाज़ें देनी शुरू हो जाए तो हम उसको तेल लगाते हैं. We lubricate it. इसको कहते हैं coating the hinges with oil is called as lubrication. उसकी वजह से फ्रिक्शन कम हो जाती है और आपका काम आसान हो जाता है. यहाँ पर भी saliva is lubricating the food and lubricating it with the sticky liquid, which is adding water and mucus to food. Mucus is a sticky liquid. What saliva does, it adds water and a sticky liquid to the food, and as a result the food becomes slippery. It can easily pass through pharynx and esophagus and enters into stomach. Food becomes slippery and juicy to easily pass through the esophagus. Okay. Then comes the process of chemical digestion. I mean, this saliva, besides water and mucus, it also contains chemicals. And those chemicals are salivary amylase. Amylase is the enzyme which acts on starch. which acts on carbohydrates, and it digests the carbohydrate starch into monosaccharides or disaccharides. It's a chemical digestion in which bonds are broken down and a big polymer is broken down into small monomers or dimers, right? So, oral cavity is the site of mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. यहीं पर ही कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स की डाइजेशन शुरू हो गई है. यहाँ पर प्रोटीन की डाइजेशन नहीं हो रही. यहाँ पर स्मॉल fats की digestion नहीं हो रही. Only carbohydrates are being partially digested over here, not completely digested. Just partial digestion will take place over here. And at the end of the day, bolus is going to be formed. How it is formed? When we are chewing and lubricating the food, our food is broken down into smaller pieces and becomes juicy and sticky. So our tongue rolls it into a small ball. Our tongue, with the help of hard palate, converts into a small ball type thing, and that small ball, kind of a round thing, is called as bolus. It's a small, slippery, spherical mass which is rolled up by our tongue and converted into a morsel, or in science we call it as bolus. So this is how you pass the bolus from oral cavity, जब bolus बन जाता है, into pharynx and esophagus and small intestine. If you look at this area, I have told you that this is the area opening of trachea, which is protected by epiglottis. This is glottis, and it is protected by epiglottis. As soon as the morsel or bolus enters into pharynx and hits the epiglottis will close the glottis, and our bolus will pass from esophagus without letting a single piece of food into the trachea. It enters into esophagus, because esophagus is the passage where food is going to be entered. You can check it by the laryngopharynx by purple color. Oropharynx means actually pharynx, ये area, but ये oral cavity का area भी थोड़ा covered है, इसलिए इसको oropharynx करें, but this area is actually pharynx, and this one is nasopharynx, और इसको कह सकते हैं oropharynx, but this whole area is pharynx. Whether it's nasopharynx or oropharynx, it is pharynx. अच्छा, इस डायग्राम में फिर मैंने वही, शुक्र है 2-3 सेकंड के लिए सिलसिला चलता है. If you look at the swallowing process, or the next topic is of swallowing and peristalsis, but this diagram is not a bit clear. I will take another diagram but this blue thing is actually bolus passing from the oral cavity, and as a result, soft palate is moving upward and where, and the bolus is entering into pharynx and then entering into esophagus, where epiglottis is closing the glottis. Epiglottis is closed, and then the bolus can enter into digestive system. This is how food enters into our digestive system, and we will talk about swallowing and peristalsis in our next lecture. You can ask me question regarding all this whole topic if you have any problem. Okay, so I will talk about those problems. Allah Hafiz for now.